All right, construction time. I want to show you how I'm going to take my three separate techniques, my pinch pot, my coils, and my slabs, to create the design that I talked about in the last video, how I'm going to make that into an eye. Keep in mind, you can make anything out of yours, but I wanted to give you an idea of how I would construct mine. With this, remember I have my pinch pot flipped upside down, so I will be starting with my pinch pot here, but I'll be leaving it face down. That's why you won't be seeing that opening. I'll be attaching on this upper lid and then attaching on some lashes to that, and then hopefully drawing on that pupil iris combo to get ready to be carved. So for starters, I want to go ahead and attach my lids. So I told you I would be taking a slab. So I took this flat slab and I've kind of practiced molding it around and seeing how I would need it to sit to be a good upper lid to this eye. So I kind of positioned it how I wanted it. I've traced a line there that you can see with my needle tool. I'm going to go through and cut that now. And really, you can cut it on or off your design to be able to cut all the way through clean. I'm going to flatten it out a little bit, be a little faster. Keep this, I could turn that into something else, but I want to test it out and make sure that this fits like I want it to. And then I'll decide, like, do I want to trim these corners? Yeah, I probably will. I'll probably just keep them rounding with the rest of the eye and cut those corners off. So I've got that lid. It is there, but it is not attached. Remember, anytime I need to connect something, I'll go back to that connecting demo, but it is 4 main steps. Anytime I'm connecting two pieces like this, I want to make sure they line up well, but also I like to trace that piece where I have it and where I want it. So I'll just run a thin line around that edge. So I know mainly when I'm connecting these two, I've got a little bit of an outline there to see where I'm going to score. We've got multiple tools to score with. The needle tool is great, so I'll just run some long score lines into this zone. This clay is partially dried out, so almost into the leather hard stage, so I'm going to make sure I really get some good deep score marks here. And I know I've got enough wall thickness into the spot to take care of it. So I've scored all the way, covering that zone. Now, next thing, I need to take the inside of my lid and do the same. So I'm going to bring some score marks across. This is fresher clay, so I'm going to go a little bit lighter. But I want to cover to bring, almost like Velcro, 2 scratch sides together so they will grip and hold. Awesome. I've scored on both sides that I'm ready to bring together. Now I need to apply the slip. Make sure that your slip is in good shape. I would check it before you even get your pieces ready to connect. And you can use a brush. I just dip a finger in there and apply it to the area that I know I'll be working with. I want to try to get it down in those grooves. It's kind of gross, but it's going to be okay. All right. Thoroughly apply the slip. Don't need to coat your whole piece, but be thorough enough to cover that whole zone. You can put your lid back on your slip so it doesn't dry out. I want to get this set back up and in the position of how I want to connect it. After I score, I slip. The next thing I want to do is press to bring this together. So this edge, you can kind of see all the way around. I'm pressing that in now. So I'm pushing all the way around, and that brings those two walls together, and you should see a little bit of slip pushing out like you can in that seam right there. You don't want any air bubbles in between the two walls that you just joined. I've scored, I've slipped, now I've pressed all the way around. Now the last step, you can call it smooth, smudge, smear, whatever you want to call it, but I would take a thumb and start to drag and kind of smear that clay down. Now I want to keep this lid elevated, so I'm going to come in with a tool. I've got a variety of tools. You could do this with your needle tool, but I'm going to come in and use, kind of looks like a dentist tool, but I'm going to use this long pointy end here to kind of undercut this lid and smear it down to the rest of the eye. But that way I keep that eye shape, and I know I've gotten rid of the seam, so I know that that piece is well connected. If I lose that line, I can always go back and re-sculpt it and recreate it, so it's not the end of the world. All right, I've smudged on that side. Still a little seam visible there. I'll take that out. Use the other end to give it a little scoop. Okay, clean it up a little bit. And then I would do the same thing along the bottom. I'm just going to use this to scrape down and out, to take that clay and spread it down and connect it onto the body of it. It'll be very obvious if you have done this step or not. And really, the last one is what brings it all together. So there's no seam visible, still a drop off, but no seam visible. Even that line is one that I've drawn. So I'll flip it. I'm gonna do the same thing. This end of the tool will probably get down in there a little bit better, but I wanna take some of that clay, smush it down into that gap. Slip will be filling a lot of this zone, but I just wanna make sure that that is connected and there aren't any air pockets down in there that could cause me trouble later. So I'll smooth that out. Take it to the wall. If you get any extra clay buildup, you can either drag it out, or I just kind of recommend smudging it down into and making it part of your design. All right, smudged all the way around every side. Make sure you get the corners, but most people forget to do underneath, so things don't stick that well. But that is one bottom lid. Next thing is a lash. I'm gonna move into working with my coil. So with this, I know I won't need a lot, so I'm going to trim a really small section of this coil that I rolled, and I'm gonna roll a lash that is fatter at one end and skinnier at the other. So I'm rolling more to the skinny end here as far as pressure goes, and then less pressure to that side. So you can see this lash thins. Now this is gonna be a risky one, just because it is such a thin piece. So I don't think I'll need all that much. So I'm gonna go and cut this off and re-roll that end, because I don't want it to be that long. There we go. That's more what I was looking for. I'll trim off the base too, so I get a nice flat connect that I will be able to lock in. I'll bring this back over, and if I'm connecting this lash to the upper part here to curl, I'll do the same thing. Even though it's super small, I will still come in and score it. Even on the tiniest little piece, we just don't want to have a bad connection. I'll put a little dot of slip on the end there. I'll press it on. Now it might look like it's good. It might look like it's well connected as far as that lash goes, but I need to really take time and go around every edge, and you will hopefully be able to see right here. I'm taking a little bit of that clay and dragging it down to smooth out that seam. Dragging down to connect. So I'm using some of the body of the clay, or you could bring some from around and bring it in to support that base. Either way, that line's got to go away, and this piece has to become one. So I'll rotate. You can still see this seam on the back, so I'm not good here. I need to come and finish the job. Don't be lazy on your connecting. Skipping that last step can cause this thing to fall apart. If it is really having a hard time sticking and you are smearing or smudging like you see here, like I'm doing, and it's not connecting, sometimes you can roll a really skinny coil. I'll show you a quick example. I had that little bit that I cut off a minute ago. You can roll a very skinny coil and bring it around it to support it. I kind of use this almost like a Band-Aid. If it's very weak, I'll bring a little extra clay and put it on it like a scarf, and at least that gives me something to smooth and smudge. And then I'll take that there and do the exact same thing that you just saw me do, but that gives me a little bit more clay to work with along that seam. Oh boy. And two, when I connect things, like you just saw me hit that lash, I kind of bumped it a little bit. When I connect things, I really try to make sure I don't get any extra movement that I don't want, because anytime I bend or smush or turn that lash, it's going to start to want to crack. So when I'm doing this right now, I'm going to try to get it in its final position. So I want a little bit of curl to the lash. I'll probably bump it out a little bit more. I might do something like that. So I want to leave it like that and make sure I don't bump anymore. Pretty much I'll repeat that by putting many more lashes, and I'll put this lid on the other side to make sure that eye is well sealed. And then I think my final step would be carving in the iris and the pupil.